Hi everybody, I wanted to show you how to make these beautiful porcelain curvilinear organic shapes using a special extra that's built into Blender, which is the XYZ math function. I have it set in a photo type environment and a glossy metal base here with just a little bit of roughness. Let me show you another view of it, and it's rendered in a yellow porcelain, and I just find it to be amazing. And there's about maybe 40 or 50 of these objects that exist, so let me show you how to do it. We'll get started. So coming over to Blender, and here's the startup file. I'm going to build the photo environment first and then drop the object into it and scale it and select the right materials and lighting, and off we go. So first deal is I want to scale this to make it into that base. So I'm going to hit S and then Z and then pull it down. And maybe I'll scale it up just a little bit this way. And great, deselect it. Now come to the front view and left click and add a mesh plane. So Shift A, mesh plane, and scale it maybe 8 times and left click to set it. Hit number 5 for your ortho view, front ortho, and then you can align the bottom of this perfectly. Okay, now I want to get the position of the camera so that I'm looking, it's in front of me, I'm looking through it. And on these back 2 corners, I want to extrude them and make them taller. So tab over to Edit Mode, hit the letter A to deselect everything, choose Edge Selection down in the middle button here. Along the bottom, now right click on that far edge and holding Shift, right click on this edge, then hit E for extrude and Z for the Z axis, and just drag your mouse up, kind of like that. Okay, great. Why don't we set up a lamp while we're here? So I'm going to right click on the lamp. Oops, sorry. Let's head over to Object Mode. And now right click on the lamp. Let me hit A first. Right click on the lamp. So A deselected everything. Select the lamp, come to Properties, come to the top and choose Cycles Render. Size, I'm going to put it to 1 for starters. And I'm going to choose Sun, Use Nodes, and Strength of 6. This is all preliminary to get started here. Great. So let me left click to put the 3D cursor kind of in the middle here. And now I want to, let me pan down a little bit, holding Shift, and then hit Shift A and Mesh Math Function XYZ. Now, the first one that popped in is this interesting, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm going to rotate it, so I'm going to hit R and Z and rotate it around and see what it looks like from this angle here. Pretty nice. So let me add a subdivision surface modifier to it. So come over to the right and click on the wrench, add modifier, subdivision surface, and under view, click that up to 2 and 3. And it's very smooth already, but just for the fun of it, come over to the left and click smooth as well. Next, we'll want to make this a little thicker, so I'm going to apply the last modifier and click Add Modifier and Solidify. And dial up the thickness. I'm going to try 0.5 and see what that does. Kind of interesting. Kind of like it. So I'm going to leave that and just adjusting things a little bit. Next, why don't we check out what the lighting is look like. So next to object mode and the viewport shading options, I'm going to click rendered, and it's taking a bit because there's a lot here to do now with all the vertices on that object. And I'm noticing that the lamp is a little bright. So let's click on the lamp and do a little experimentation in the properties for the lamp over here. Dial down the power of this. And actually I'm going to turn it into a spotlight and take the strength up to 4,000. Enter. And take the size down to 0.1 so that it's more defined. Rotate this around. I think I'll rotate that. So I'm going to click back here on solid mode. Oops. Right click on the object, hit R for rotate along the Z axis. R, Z, and I want to see more of this face here. And I'm going to move the spotlight up and away a little bit. And maybe reduce the cone here. Check it from this side, and it looks pretty good. So back to rendered. Okay, getting close now. So I'm going to go back to solid and choose a material for the organic form. So click over here on the materials, click new, and instead of diffuse, choose principled BSDF, and base color, I'm going to choose just that nice little cream color here. And I'm going to leave all these settings alone. So let me hit 0 to see what the camera is seeing. Hit the letter N so that we can lock the camera to the view. N again. And pan and rotate. Coming over to the camera setting and changing the X-axis to a little more vertical. And the Y up a little bit. And dialing up my resolution to 100%. Zooming in just a little bit. And let's take a look how it's all shaping up before I go to the full render. I know this render may take a while. Okay. On the lamp, I'm going to take down the power just a little bit more. Just so it's not quite so overwhelming. And in fact, that hot spot there, well, we'll see what happens when we do a real render on this. Okay, so coming over to the camera, come down to sampling, scroll down and make the render samples to 250, enter, and then hit F12 and start the rendering process. And I'm going to pause the video here, as this will take a while. You can see the first tiles just starting to generate. Okay, that took quite a while to render, actually, 15 minutes and 34 seconds. And that's because I put 3 subdivision surface modifying. Well, I did it once, but I put a value of 3, and it created 524,000 vertices and the same amount of faces here. So the computer had to work especially hard, and the other thing I did was I did not use my GPU compute, which will always speed things up if you have a decent video graphics card. So the last thing I want to do is adjust this hotspot here. I'm going to click this third button, which brings me into the scene settings, and scroll down and toggle open color management and exposure and gamma. The gamma refers to the contrast, and exposure is how much light. So I'm dialing down the exposure till that hotspot just disappears. And then gamma I'm dialing till I have a nice distribution of blacks and whites and the contrast that I want. One last thing are these fireflies here. These tiny little white dots. I'm going to ignore them for now, but there is a way of dealing with them. If you come over to your render menu again and down here, I could up the render amount and have an even longer render time, but this clamp, direct and indirect, I can play with these values if I wanted to get rid of them. But I've done enough with this for this point. So I'm going to save this image with an F3 and call it XYZ form. And I want to show you also, I'm going to hit escape to get rid of this, right? And okay, get into object mode here, or solid mode, I'm sorry. Right click, delete the object with the X and delete, and hit 0 to get out of the camera view, and put the 3D cursor down on the podium here, and then let's add another one. So Shift A, mesh, math function, XYZ, and instead of this one, come to the lower left here, and if I click this right here, we can see, okay, how many of these are around to play with. So shell, was that shell? That might have been shell. Let me hit X, delete it, and Shift A, mesh, math function, XYZ, and where is that? Right here. This one's called Boy. Excuse me. Scale that up a little bit. Let's take a look at it from a few points of view. I could rotate it up along the x-axis, the red one here. So I'm going to hit RX. Guess what? I had the wrong thing selected. So right click here, rotate X, and pull this up. Okay. I'm going to give it a subdivision surface modifier, this time of just 2. And hold my vertices to 33,000, and then come over here and hit smooth. And nice. Move that in the center. Let's try some stainless steel this time. So I'm going to click the materials, new, glossy, 0.02, maybe just a small amount of roughness, and come on over here and see what it looks like rendered. Oh, it's pretty cool. I'm going to dial up the lamp a little bit. Strength. Probably because of the settings back here, I can adjust the exposure also here if I want to brighten it up. I don't mind that specular highlight on here. It kind of helps make it look like stainless. good. I'm going to do it from this angle. So I'm coming back to solid. I'm going to hit 0 for my camera view and rotate around here. Move this object into the center here. And pan over a little bit. And check out the settings again, same here. I could click denoising here on the layers properties, and I'm going to hit F12. And let me pause. Okay, here's the render, and that was a considerably better 3 minutes. Coming over here, we can adjust the light again a little bit, exposure and gamma. So see, the reflective surface of this form depends on what it's looking at. These surfaces are looking at the world, which is very dark, and these surfaces are looking down at this reflective diffuse surface here. And I also, on this render, made this little platform into a glossy steel as well. So save the image, F3, and XYZ form 2. So have fun experimenting with these. Let's see 2 or 3, maybe even 4 of these forms, a couple of different renders, and post them on the blog, and we'll see you later.